Welcome to another edition of the Last Negroes at Harvard podcast. I'm Kent Garrett. There were 18 of us in the Harvard College class of 1963. We are all over 83 years old now, and for the last 6 years, we have produced a weekly podcast. Today our guest is Megan Reynolds. She is an editor and writer based in New York. She is currently a senior editor at Well, where she edits and writes stories in the design, interiors, and home space. Her new book is titled Like, a history of the world's most hated and misunderstood word. I'm joined by 15 of my Harvard classmates.
Hamp Howell, Harvard 63.
Ron.
Yeah, class of 63, signing in from Newton, Massachusetts, been in TV and video all my life, including 5 minutes ago where I was editing a video.
Okay, great. Jerry.
Jerry Secundi, Pasadena, California, class of 63.
All right. Richard.
All class of 63 right now in Wellfleet, Massachusetts.
All righty. And Allison, Sydney.
Yeah, hi. Allison Wardle, Cindy Wardle, class of 63 in Radcliffe 63, living in Rodin County in Tuscany.
Okay. Alden.
I was born in Massachusetts and grew up in northwestern Connecticut. And when my daughter speaks like this, I hate it.
Okay. Bill.
Yeah, Bill Collins, live in Aiken, South Carolina. Grew up in Massachusetts, 20 years in the Navy. Moved to Aiken after retiring from the Navy to work at the Savannah River site.
Okay. And John.
John Woodford, Ann Arbor, retired journalist, and I'm eager to hear what you're going to say.
That word, wow. Megan, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me. I am Megan Reynolds. I'm currently in Brooklyn. I grew up in Rhinebeck, New York, and the Bay Area. I went to college at Emerson, actually, in Boston. And now I'm here. And I wrote a book, and we're talking about it.
Tell us about the book.
Gonna happen. Well, I'm going to find it. I have it in front of me. Well, it is a book. It's called Like, a history of the world's most hated and misunderstood word. Mm-hmm. And it is, it's what it says it is, but it's not as history forward as I think the title suggests, which was partially by design. I just knew that I don't have it in me necessarily to write a book, a very sort of serious historical book. So I didn't. But I think it's a topic that, even though I didn't necessarily think it was a topic that people were still debating or thinking about, what I've discovered since writing the book is that lots of people have lots of opinions about this word and its use and whether or not it is useful at all. I think it is, but I assume some people maybe do not. And I'm interested in hearing all sorts of opinions on this.
Well, do you have a historical...
I noticed that you haven't used the word like so far.
That is true. And it's not because I'm not thinking. It's not because I'm telling myself not to do it. I think it is truly because I have I'm confident in what I'm saying right now, and I don't have to really think ahead too much about what I'm saying because I have said many of these things before, and I'm also very intimately familiar with the subject matter. But that is a great segue for me. Thank you, actually, because one of the ways that functions is in conversation is to give you and the person you're talking to sort of a little hint that, if I'm saying a lot in a sentence, it probably means that I'm still gathering my thoughts as we're talking. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just It is how conversation occasionally works, especially when it is difficult or, maybe stressful or just sort of when you just haven't gotten all of your thoughts together. And so I think that's one of its many uses. And that's one of the uses that I think is very valuable, because there are oftentimes, many times in my life, when I'm saying something and I know that I should have really thought just for one more second about what else I was going to say. And like helps me sound like I'm still talking, which I am, but it also helps me get my thoughts together. And I think we could all use that.
But did you study or find out when did this particular word begin to be used in this way? Because it had been always, and then it spread like a virus, but I don't know where it started. And then in speech in other languages, what other people use a sound like this to indicate that they are pausing or thinking, and use
Right.
the same term? I mean, some people, I know Russians will often go and they can make an sound when they're speaking, and they use like, but they go So this may happen in a lot of different languages. But what about like? Because since it's not just a sound,
Right.
I remember when we first heard it, my wife was pointing out in 1962, our friend Bob Grenier in our class married Emily, who was in high school in Newtonville, Massachusetts, and she was the first person we heard back then say like in 2 or 3 times a sentence. That was so we wondered whether she was a vector and spread it.
I mean, I don't. So when I first started writing this book, my assumption was that it sort of started with the Valley Girls, which I think is how it really proliferated very widely through culture. And then I did a little bit of research. I did a lot of research, but my initial research, I thought, I was like, Valley Girls, great, cool, I got this. I'm going to keep writing this book. Then I discovered that it sort of showed up in the beatniks, in Kerouac, and things of that nature. So that's obviously predates the Valley Girls.
Right.
And then I discovered through more research and more talking to people that it actually shows up in the ways that we are using it today, in the ways that people think are bad, in court records from the 1600s in the UK. And so that's a really good source, because it is literally a scribe taking down, recording how someone else is speaking naturally. So it has been around for, I mean, most things, everything, many things that we think are new are not, and so this word has been present in the language for some time, and it has spread so, it has spread so much throughout like the English speaking world because of, colonialism, British rule, British Empire, et cetera, so on. But I think it really gained a foothold in the US and in sort of popular culture because of the Valley Girls.
But it's sort of like a word, and then it's not like a word. It's like a sound.
Yeah.
It's used. Sometimes it has no referent and no, it's just an utterance.
Right. It's a filler word.
It's like a homonym, really, to the word
Yeah.
like.
Yes. I mean, I think what you're just, it's a filler word. It is, something I've talked to people about for the book and just in my life in general now, is how, the argument is always, well, if you're going to use a filler word, why wouldn't you just not say anything? And my retort is always, silence sounds worse. And I think maybe that's just like obviously a product of my generation, but I do think that, there is a desire to fill the space if there is dead air or empty space. And I personally think that silence sounds worse. And so any of the filler words that we use, like, et cetera, are there to sort of, they fill the silence, but they also string thoughts together, and they can string disparate, like different thoughts together, thoughts that are completely the opposite. It sort of indicates that even though, you said one thing, you put a filler word in between it and you said something else, it indicates to your conversational partner and also to you a little bit that those thoughts are related, and you're going to get to how they are related, just not quite at that moment.
Mhm.
You're taking your time.
Richard.
Yeah, I'm sure you're familiar with this. I don't remember it exactly, but a few days ago, I think I read an obituary in the Times
Mm.
about a linguist. I think it was Joyce Lakoff
Oh,
who wrote a book.
Robin Lakoff.
Maybe Robin Lakoff.
I'm
Oh,
looking this up as you talk. Yes.
all right. Well, anyhow, a linguist who wrote a book in
Oh,
which
you're right.
she, huh?
Yes. Yes. She's in my book. Yes. Continue. I'm sorry to cut you off.
All right. So she wrote a book saying that like is much more frequently used by women than men. It's an expression of insecurity and inferiority and a
Right.
way of signaling that they're not threatening men by being too sure of themselves.
Hmm.
Right.
Well, what's your reaction to that analysis?
Well, so she did. So she did indeed write that. I did see. Yeah. I didn't realize she died very recently. Yeah. I mean, her book, which the name of which I cannot remember at this time. I'm so sorry to her memory. I will not be able to remember it. Her book at the time was sort of the first one that looked at language, I think, through like a feminist lens. So I think her theory then was very much of the time of where feminism was. So I think if that was in the 70s, that's sort of the second wave. I'm my I that's correct. I feel confident in that. And so I don't think that it's necessarily wrong to I don't think that it's let me get my thoughts together. I'm struggling. Um, I think it's okay that here we go. I don't think that like is an indicator of weakness or inferiority in language. And I do think that it's maybe we've evolved past a point now where we're thinking that like the way women speak is necessarily inferior to the way that men speak. I think there's obviously there are obvious there are obvious differences in the two, but I don't think that one is superior to the other. So I think that that sort of initial assertion was a good observation in that she was speaking from personal experience, from research, and sort of speaking to the time. But I think we've moved. I think like the entire conversation has moved past that a little bit at this point.
Well, but how is it moved past it? Is it not an expression of uncertainty, of lack of confidence?
It is, but I don't think it is, but I don't
It
think
is
that
sometimes. It's
it
not
can
sometimes. It can be, not always.
Well,
correct.
we're
Not
always talking about averages and
Yeah.
trends.
I think yes, if you were to be I think yes, in general it is, but I don't think that that's negative. And I think that that's the thing that's hard to sort of to think that like insecurity and a lack of confidence, I guess, are not negative is a sort of weird thing to try to reconcile. But I think it's showing vulnerability essentially. It's showing a little bit of what I think people would consider like a weakness. And I don't think that it's a weakness to be vulnerable. I think it is difficult to do it and to kind of own it, in your speech or otherwise.
One thing that's a principle in developmental psychology is that a 5-year-old boy functions at the same verbal level as a 4-year-old girl.
Mm, yes.
That girls' brains develop much more quickly.
Right.
So you would think that would have a mushrooming effect over the subsequent years.
Right. Right. I mean, I guess I can't speak to that with any authority. You're right. You would think that that would sort of influence the way language is used and stuff, but I don't know. I mean, one of the things that I did discover in the book is that obviously like is associated like overuse of the word is associated primarily with women. But the way that people learn language is through their primary caregivers. And your primary caregivers, for the most part, I mean, I was actually raised mostly by my dad. Good, great man, good dad. But yeah, your primary caregivers are generally women. And so that whatever those habits are sort of inculcated at childhood and however else. And then, you become an adult and you no longer want to speak like your parents because that's part of the whole rebellion situation, and then it all comes out in the wash at the other end, I think. But so that's, I mean, that is something to also consider as to why it has maybe proliferated.
Mm-hmm. Jerry.
Megan,
Mhm.
I live in Pasadena, California, just a
Yes.
few miles from the quote from the valley.
Uh-huh.
And mythology out here, indeed, is that it was invented by the Val girls. I
Right.
once counted literally in a 5-minute conversation with a Valley girl that she used like over 100 times in 5 minutes. So my question is it lack of vocabulary? Do they simply not have enough vocabulary? So these filler
Um,
words come in?
I mean, I huh, possibly, possibly it could be that, but it also could just be a sort of, honestly, just like a more casual approach to speech. And I do think, I mean, I guess it would depend on what words like was replacing in the sentence. Do you know what I mean? Like what, how was it used in the sentence? Like in the 5-minute conversation or whatever. That would be my initial question before I were to give like a definitive answer.
It was hard for me to follow the conversation because the word
I
like
see.
just kept coming up and up and up and up is what it amounted to. And
I see.
this was a fairly educated young lady in theory.
Right. Well, I mean, I would say that she probably was educated across period across the board. I think one of the sort of, one of the things that I've come up against when speaking about this book is using like too much a sign of a lack of intelligence or education or otherwise. And I don't think so because first of all, I use it a lot and I wrote this book. And second of all, many people I know who are also smart and whatever else use the word, and it hasn't it hasn't negatively impacted their life or their career as far as I can see. Um, I think part of the issue about around the word is, as always, a little bit is sexism. That I cover that in the book. I think because the word is associated so strongly with young women, I think we are still kind of working with the sort of the specter of sexism is everywhere, but it's also like I would say the criticism around the word is often very gendered, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the word is used often almost like a bird song, or it's a part of speech. When the women are doing it, their bonding they use it in such a way that it establishes a contact. For instance, they'll say something like, they'll say, I was like so mad at him, and then he was like,
Mhm.
oh, you did such and such, and they speak like that, and they're really expressing a lot within that word. They're expressing emotions and actions and their relation to the
Yes,
other person. So it's a way of abbreviating some sort of emotional feeling in
that is
instances.
that
But
is
it's also a way of expressing lack of certainty.
That too, it can be that too. Yeah,
it is
it's
so
got many ways, many things it can do,
it
depending on
is
the context and who said it when, and you'd have to
total.
study it and take each utterance and look and see what could possibly be meant by the person.
Yes, and I will say to your example, the example that you brought up of conversation where you're saying I was like blah 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 and then he was
Mhm.
like blah blah blah. That use of the word is one of my favorites. It's called the quotative, and it's when like replaces said. So you could tell the same story by saying I said blah 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 and the other person said blah blah blah, and that suggests um a precision to what was being said. But if you're saying like instead of said, what that is allowing you to do is to show how you felt about the
Yeah.
thing, about the situation or the story that you're describing.
Mhm.
So, and that is really, and that sort of engenders like a rapport between friends. It makes it's like a tiny bid for an emotional connection. So to your point, so that is, I think, one of the most useful. That is also one of the ways that people get the most upset about, because it doesn't logically make sense, because it's like, if you have the word said to describe the act of saying something, then why are you using a different word that doesn't seem to make
But it
a lick of
performs.
sense?
It lets the speaker perform a little
Exactly.
what the person has done. So there's
Yes.
performance. It's a different kind of communicating about the person.
Yes, you're doing a little bit, you're sort of,
Yeah.
you're sharing with, you're probably speaking to someone who you are comfortable with, and someone who is, you're close to, someone who's a friend who you want to,
Mhm.
say you're maybe explaining a complicated or an annoying situation at work. That's always the example I use, is like something annoying that happened to you at work. You're not going to say the actual contours of what happened at work are probably pretty boring to someone else that isn't you. So if you're just going to explain how the thing made you feel, then that is useful information for the person that you're talking to, and also helpful for you. But yes, Richard, to your point, it is still an expression of uncertainty, but I think it's just, that isn't always a bad thing, because it is sometimes okay to want to think about what you're saying as you're still saying it, because I don't think we're always in a position where we are completely prepared to speak with authority, or not clarity, but yeah, we're not always in a position we're not always prepared. No one is ever always prepared, in
Sure,
my
but
opinion.
the point is that if women are expressing more uncertainty than men are expressing in similar situations and with similar
Mhm.
degrees of certainty,
Mhm.
that's a problem.
I mean, it can be, but there was also, where was it? I think there was something in the Times a couple years ago that I cited in the book, where I forget who it was. He was like a workplace psychologist, something like that. But he was making a point that, you know, sometimes use excuse me, using sort of language that is considered like weaker or sort of more uncertain is occasionally like beneficial in situations when you need to do stuff like ask for a raise, or when you're talking to your boss, just because it lets, if you're making the conscious choice to do that, to sort of be a little more self-effacing or whatever with the way you're speaking. So if you're making the conscious choice to sound a little less confident, it sort of, his point was that it lets your boss feel like they're still your boss.
Well, that's
Like,
an interesting, it would be
and
interesting to know whether it, the use of this term predominantly by women is
mm,
associated with having less power in
in the
situations
workplace.
like that, in the workplace and elsewhere. Yeah.
Um, I did speak to a woman who was a dialect coach and a variety of other things for the book. And we talked a lot about professionalism, which I think is something that this subject, the word and professionalism, often are linked in a lot of ways and a lot of times that I've been talking about it. And her point, which I realized was pretty valid, is that even if you are someone who says like a lot naturally, as I would consider myself to be, in the workplace, if you are confident in you just automatically switch. You sort of know intrinsically when to use it and when not to use it. And that's like a minute calculation that you make, but doesn't it it doesn't, I guess I'm trying to say, it doesn't suggest a lack of professionalism if you're using like a lot at work. It's just, you will probably use it less if you're doing something like uh doing a big presentation or whatever. If you're doing a big presentation to the entire C-suite, one assumes that you will be a little more, just slightly more assertive. And if a like works its way in there, it's not the end of the world. But if you're I don't know, talking to the accounting department about why these invoices haven't been paid, that to me is a more low stakes work conversation, depending on the severity. But in my opinion, that's more low stakes.
Mm-hmm.
Some
Well,
people say a lot. And it used to be, don't say so much. I can remember my parents sometimes, you said when you're just think and don't say
Mhm.
and so that can be another way of these little sounds we make. But then the beatnik males would say like, and there used to be the humor Stan Freberg and those other comedians in the 50s. It'd be like, wow, man, like this. Oh, like wow. And that was a whole kind of way of expressing a beatnik talk. So that, and those were guys.
Right.
Used to say
Um,
that. Oh, like wow.
I mean, there's a bit in the book about the word dude, which I think is the sort of male equivalent of like, in that it is a word or a phrase that has been sort of, I don't know if it's been equally derided. I don't think so, but it's not a perfect, analogy, but it was close enough for me. I made it work somehow.
Mhm.
But the difference between like, dude is something you don't necessarily, I'm always going to put this in like a workplace context because I have a problem, I suppose. But like, you're not going to necessarily, dude is not a word that you would necessarily want to call your boss or whoever else in the work. That's a more that's for friends or however else. One of the examples I use is that sometimes when one of my sisters is being fresh to my mother, she'll call her dude, like, dude, calm down, to my mom. And my mother is decidedly, she could stand to calm down, but like she's not a dude in any definition of the word. But dude communicates a sort of a cool. It communicate like dude can be a lifestyle. People, the Big Lebowski, I think the dude in the Big Lebowski is legitimately an aspirational figure for some people. So I think that when like is used by men, it does seem like it's like possibly kind of like a cool slang thing. But when it's used by women, especially teenage girls, it's like, what is wrong with you? And you will never get a job because you sound dumb, if I may be so frank.
Alden.
We all use words, but two of
Yes.
you were really particularly journalists. I mean, John, you focused on the written word, and Kent, you were a TV journalist. So how did you express a question or when you weren't confident of something? Did you didn't use like? What did you use?
I use probably or what's go as the transition word. But the other thing, what about all those people who Megan, who say like, do you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? That comes out of the black ghetto talk.
Yeah,
You know what
right.
I'm saying? They
Tell us
say like,
about that.
know what I'm saying? Know what I'm saying?
I think
That's kind of getting people to be on your side. You know what I'm
yes,
saying?
Yeah,
That's forming an alliance. Another
correct.
thing
it becomes a sound.
that I've heard you use is
You know,
and
Yeah.
sort of,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
those are not quite filler in the sense of just giving you time to think. They're
Correct.
modifiers where you don't feel like you can say it directly. Oh, this peach is kind of moldy. You
Right.
know,
The peach is probably
it's very
moldy. Yeah.
different impression than this peach is moldy. That's
Right.
very direct. Or that color you just painted is kind of garish, don't you think? That color you paint is garish. It's expressing a strong, it seems very different with kind of or sort of interposed.
Yeah. I think that I'm doing it right now. So one moment. Yeah, I think that's to the point of like, you know what I mean, kind of sort of something that people do a lot that I've done, which I think is annoying that I'm working on not doing, is saying right at the end of a sentence. And all of that, all of those things, those specific words, I think are yes, to sort of check in to be like, are you following? Like, you're following along with me. Like, I'm still talking. I said something. I'm saying right, or you know what I mean, not necessarily to actually ask you if you know what I mean, but just to sort of be like, hey, you still here? I'm still here. And I don't know if it's ingratiating necessarily. There's something about it that I find to be like a little like smarmy in a way, which is why I think I'm trying to do it less, because it does to me feel very like TV talking head pundit kind of like a sort of an MSNBC vibe, which is fine, but it's not necessarily how I want to comport myself in the day to day.
You want more of a Fox vibe.
Yeah, that is not what I am saying, everyone. Let us, no, no, let us all relax. That is not, no, but I generally don't want to speak like a talking head in my regular life because I'm decidedly not a talking head in my regular life. And only moonlighting as one because I wrote
Like
this
on
book.
TV.
Hey,
Yeah.
Jeff,
Yeah, what I was going to say has already been anticipated, I think, by Ron and Megan. I mean, I'm just going to all these other filler phrases. I mean, but I can add something. I'm living in southern Spain, but I learned Spanish in South America, and when we got here, the filler words were different.
Ah,
I mean, I knew a lot of filler words in Venezuela, which aren't really understood or are surprising if you cross the border and you go from Venezuela to Puerto Rico or Cuba.
Right.
But here, uh, I was puzzled at first. I got used to it, but people are venga. Well, venga is the imperative of venir. It means come.
Yes.
Where am I supposed to go? No, it doesn't mean anything. Venga means like, yeah, okay. Venga, I mean, like I think what it means is, well, yeah, I heard you.
mm-hmm.
That's all it means is I heard you. I'm acknowledging. So that's all.
I mean, these words exist in every language, I would think.
Yeah. Because we're animals. We're animals making sounds with one another, at a certain point in our speech and utterance. And so we have these little sounds we make, and it's just sort of a way of contact and maintaining contact by making these sounds.
Yeah. And yes, other languages do have their own versions of filler words that I covered not really because I could have honestly I think that would have been like a whole other book that I wasn't writing at that time. But yeah, there are filler words in other languages and they do sort of serve the same purpose, which is just to string some sentences together or to sort of, say, hey, hello, I'm still talking. Are you still here? We're still talking. Let's keep talking. They're moving the conversation along. They're sort of doing the little emotional lift of being like, I'm here with you. We are both paying attention. I'm just making sure you are actually paying attention.
I'm trying to think of, I'm not done yet. I'm trying to still think of what I'm going to say.
Yes.
I mean, many things, these sounds.
Yes, exactly.
I'm still back with what Jerry said about Valley Girls, Jerry. And I think it can be a regional dialectic to have certain speech patterns.
Absolutely. I would agree there. I mean, I grew up like I said, I grew up in upstate New York, and then I went to high school in the Bay Area. And in the Bay Area, one of the slang words that does not exist anywhere outside of like the Bay Area is hella, which is hella, Hella. It is, when I first heard it, I was like, this doesn't make a lick of sense because it's not, it's an intensifier, and like can also serve as an intensifier, but hella is like, it's an intensifier. It's like if you say, there were hella cops at the whatever at the over there. It means that the amount of police officers that were present isn't necessarily important. What you are saying is like there were truly probably too many. Like there were a lot of police. I don't know what was going on. So it's a little dramatic. It allows for a little hyperbole. But to me, first, logically, it didn't make any sense because it's not saying there's a hell of a lot of things.
Right.
Because it exists solely as its own phrase, and it is also endemic to the Bay Area. Like it marks you, if you use it a lot, it like marks you as being from the Bay Area. And it took me a while to get used to it. And then I got used to it. And I started saying it a lot when I was in high school, and then I stopped when I moved back east because I was like, this isn't working for me anymore.
Well, I live in the Bay Area, but don't use that term.
You've heard the term before?
But you've heard it, I assume, no?
I don't remember having heard it, but maybe I missed it.
Maybe it's
Uh,
stratification.
I think I'm trying. I mean, who do I know that still lives over there? A bunch of people. I actually did ask one of my friends from high school if she still says hella as much as we did in high school, and she's my age. I am how old am I? 42. And she was like, no, I don't say it as much anymore. Like it's very, I'll use it. She's like, I'll use it very specifically, but I don't say it nearly as much as I used to. So I think maybe that word specifically is kind of that's like very much generational, more so than I think that maybe has like a very specific use for a very specific time in your life. Like one of my sisters, when she goes back to the Bay, um, she says hella all the time, but she doesn't say it when she's in New York or she lives in Boston. She doesn't say it in Boston when she's, in Boston, but when she goes back home and hangs out with her friends, it shows up again.
But a regional thing could spread. We don't know which one might, but
That's
obviously all
true.
of these things began someplace, and then some of them took hold and spread all over the place. And others will stay in their region, and they won't make it.
Exactly.
We don't know
Yeah.
what factor might spread it. It could be a song or a movie, script. We don't know what would do it, but
Yeah.
something tip over, and all of a sudden, in 50 years, there'll be some other thing taking the place, and that'd be
Yes. There's
How-
always gonna. Oh,
How do
sorry.
they
Go ahead.
come up? How do they arise and go out of favor or in favor? What's the process on that?
I mean, I think, that's a good question. I think what happens is that a word, okay, this was an example that I gave, bae, BAE, that word, which every is it's a term of endearment. That word, I think what happens is like the word starts in sort of a subculture. It gains foothold and sort of goes through like popular culture and then sort of mainstream culture. And then by the time like, I don't know, if you could get a Hallmark card that says like a Valentine's Day card that says something something my bae blah blah blah, then we've reached the point of oversaturation. The word is just like we're not using it anymore. If Cheez-Its is saying on Twitter that like their new jalapeno cheddar crunch whatever is bae, then we're like, okay, no, goodbye, we're done. We're settled. That word's done. So I think maybe it's just maybe that's sort of the life cycle. But I think the thing with like is that it is, first of all, there are many different ways to use it that are like acceptable, right? Like that we all know the verb, right? So there's all those ways. But I think just because of how both pervasive and how useful it is, I don't think it's ever going to go away in the slang use, in my opinion. I could be wrong. Happy to be proved wrong. Love to be wrong. But I don't know. Might be right this time.
Winston tastes good. And, our teacher would say, "Don't say like a cigarette should." That's wrong. It's the wrong thing to say. You don't say like a cigarette should, and could not overcome the other use of it.
Yeah, I mean, in that example, I think that yes, I understand it's more grammatically correct to say what it's supposed to be. Winston tastes good as a cigarette should.
Yes.
Which is like, okay, but I don't know, likes just sounds better.
Well,
If I'm being honest. I know that like sounds better to me.
Oh.
Well, how did you come to write the book?
So the idea came to me via my editor. And it was the reason that I was so interested in it is because, he presented the idea, and the kind of books that I like to read are ones that do sort of like a deep dive into a subject, a very sort of ordinary subject or something that, I don't really think about that often, and then will find myself thinking about all the time. And so what I noticed in my own speech, and especially in my written communication, so text messages, emails, work stuff, regular life stuff, is that I do say like a lot. And I think it's because, at least in written communication and work stuff, I think it's because it I think it communicates a sort of like an authenticity. Like I'm being myself as the way that what you guys are seeing now is also, I don't change very much based on the circumstance that I'm in. I'm pretty much the same person across the board. I mean, I have like what I'm calling like a customer voice, which is, when you're professional, your little professional voice. I have that, but I think I strive to be sort of as authentically myself as I can in whatever situation I'm in. And I notice that the reason I'm saying I will say like a lot at work or wherever else is because I'm sort of rejecting the idea for myself of anything that is like overly formal, because that is not how I was raised. And that's also not, I don't necessarily think that that's important. Yeah.
Do you use it in writing?
Not like right. It depends, right? Like in a text message, I think probably depending on the context. In a work email, it depends on who I am writing the work email to. And in my actual writing, like professional writing, it doesn't come up because I mostly write nonfiction. I think fiction is like a whole other conversation about how to use like appropriately, because I think with writing dialogue, it is difficult to write dialogue that sounds real, but not too real, because real dialogue is not inherently interesting, So there's a way to do it. I just don't know how, because not good at fiction. I learned that early.
I'm going to ask people later. There are 3 or 4 uses of language currently going that infuriate me.
Okay.
And when I see it written or hear someone say it, there's certain ones, and it really, I think, oh my God, And so I wonder if there are things like that that other people here, for example, the use of impact so often. This impacts, this impacts, this impacts.
Oh,
That bugs
yeah.
me. Or people who say processes instead of processes, and they think it's again, they think it's a Greek plural and it's Latin. Like it would be like saying successes. How many successes have you? Say
Well, my
processes.
favorite is
Well, and often
incredible.
scholars think, oh yeah, there's so many processes, and they'll think, oh, this really makes it sound like a higher level sort of thing I'm talking
Right.
about. So I have things like that that bug me. So,
Mhm.
and I wonder if other people have the same things, or lie and lay. Oh, she was laying down,
Uh,
and
No, the one that bugs me
irrational
the
almost.
most, the one that bugs me the most is incredible. Everything's incredible.
Right. Which means you don't believe it.
Yeah, yeah.
Another thing,
It's unbelievable.
that's really trending, I guess, or just part has been integrated, is exclamation points. I mean, that's not quite what we've been talking about, but
Yeah.
I find a perpetrator too, particularly in texting or in a lot of emails, you know,
yes.
like for example,
Like,
if we saw somebody, last night and they invited us over for dinner, it was, first of all, it was great being with you, using that overused word great. And
Mm.
it seems naked and unenthusiastic without an explanation point.
Yes.
Exclamation point. It
Yes.
was it was great seeing you last night. It was
No, that
great
sounds
seeing
like
you last night.
right. It was great seeing you last night, period. Sounds like you did something wrong, possibly, and you're not sure like what it is you did, but was it really? I mean, it's just really hard to convey uh nuance, and it's hard to convey like, I mean, there's so much lost in just written communication that you get in person to person speaking, tone
Yeah,
of
but
voice.
the president of the United States manages to use capitals all the time.
Well, that man, I mean, I'm not really, this was brought up to me yesterday when I was on a call with some producer for, I think, the thing that I'm doing next, but because I would talk about politicians sort of ingratiate, like I was thinking one of the examples I use is Sarah Palin sort of doing a folksy kind of like I'm just a regular person shtick for when she was running for office in an attempt to, I assume, appeal to a base. And the question was like, well, Donald, our president speaks very much like a a regular person. And I was like, well, yes, but
What?
well, first of all, like, no, I don't think that man knows how to talk any other way than how he is speaking, because I do not think he's very intelligent. And also, he's terrible at everything that he's doing. And we all know that. But yeah, nothing is definitive, I suppose. I don't know.
Right before you made your comment, John, I had written down on a post-it 4 things.
Oh, great. That's what I want to know.
That bug me. Three of them are kind of minor and I guess grammatical. Please be using I when they should use me.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I do
yeah.
that all the time. Yep.
And this may be debatable. People using between when they should use among.
I don't even know the difference now that I think about it.
I think it's going away.
Okay.
I always understood between is involving 2 things and among is more.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay, yeah.
But I think it's
in big areas. The New York Times style book, we had to deal with stuff like that. And there were some things that, or there's some things that kind of get in these border.
Right. The other, and this one I think is a lost cause, is good and well.
Oh.
Yeah.
But the one that really gets my goat, and I don't know, maybe this is just a California thing. Jerry and Alden, you may be. You go into a store and someone says, "Welcome in." When you leave, they never say "welcome out." And welcome would do the job.
So the in is just like an unnecessary. It's redundant.
All the darn time. And I guess it's kind of like the exclamation point. I guess it's supposed to convey that the extreme glee that I've walked in.
I mean,
one that bugs me is when a server in a restaurant says, "What are we having today?"
Yeah, I do hate that. I do hate that, because I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm having and you're working, and I'm sorry that you're working and that I'm having, but like the sort of the fake kind of familiarity that you experience, I think, in the service industry a lot is, I mean, when I was a waitress, I can tell you I certainly never did that. Shouldn't surprise anybody here, but that was not my move. I don't love that either. I will say that.
Are those of you not in California, do you run into this welcome in thing?
I haven't heard that one.
I haven't heard it either.
Stores in New York aren't really greeting you like that, which is great, which is fine for me. But, I'm trying to think. No, I think the last store I went into was a dispensary, and they said welcome. And I was like, okay, thank you. Nice, I'm here. Here I am. Thank you so much.
And you were in, but you didn't.
And I was in, but they didn't say welcome in, because I already walked in the freaking door. So they saw. So we were all good. Okay. That is something. Yeah, I think maybe that is more pervasive in places where people are slightly friendlier occasionally.
Well, there's coming into a store.
Has been awesome.
There's coming into a store and there's leaving a store.
Right.
I remember as a teenager when I was in the Blue Ridge part of North Carolina, and I leave a store and they say, "Y'all come back." And I thought, what have I done? I started coming back into the store. Maybe I didn't pay.
Right. There's, I mean, there are little regionalisms, et cetera, that I think can be off-putting, only because you're like, what? This doesn't make it. I've never heard this before. This doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why would I come back? Like, again, I paid for the thing. Did I not pay for the thing? Like, why are we having this conversation? All that just takes getting used to, and you either go with the flow or you just resolutely do not.
My pet peeve is ongoing. It's still ongoing.
Oh. As in, like, a situation is ongoing?
Yeah, see, it's still ongoing. But ongoing is it all already.
Yeah.
Another one that bugs me is nouns being turned into verbs.
Okay.
Gifted something.
I hate that. I will say I do encounter that a lot at work, specifically for what I do. And I find it to be, that drives me bonkers, because I'm like, someone gave you something. Someone gave me something. I wasn't gifted anything. Like, what is that? Go away. Yeah, I hate that. I do. here I am saying don't police language, but I will say that there's a lot of like corporate jargony things that are very specific to very specific industries that I think is really bad. But gifted is one that has driven me crazy. Since I've worked at Dwell. So yeah.
Well, which way is light going? Is it on the way out or what? Or is it?
I don't think it's going anywhere because I think it's just one of the points that I've made is that, the generation that grew up using it is like they're in positions of power in the workplace and wherever else. And so it's just going, it's going to stick around. It's not, I don't think we're ever going to completely scrub it from our speech. I just hope that people are either more accepting of it or conversely are also less hard on themselves for using it, because that's like the other half of this whole situation is that every woman I've talked to over the course of writing this book and afterwards has said, my father used to tell me, don't say it, it makes you sound stupid, or like I get mad at myself every time I say it and blah, 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 blah. And I have said repeatedly, don't do that. Like there's so many other things to worry about. Also, like, don't beat yourself up for something that is truly, if you look around, there are 9 million other bad things happening right now as we're all sitting here. So those are of a larger concern. And as long as you're communicating in a way that is objectively not harmful to the other person, then get it out however you can. Communicating is not as easy as people seem to think. I'm quite bad at it.
How's your book been doing?
It's a great question. I've been doing a lot of stuff for it, which is nice, but I have not asked about sales, in part because, not that I don't care, I care, but it seems healthy for me. The attitude that I have towards work is once I've done a thing, it's done. I don't have much regrets about the thing that I've done. I'm always proud of the end product. And I've learned to not attach much of my like self-worth to my work, which is a hard thing to do when you are a writer for a living. That's difficult. So I think it's doing good. People seem to like it. I'm happy when someone tells me that they liked it. I'm like, great, you read it? Fabulous. My dad was very happy. He cried, I think. That was nice. So, I'm happy with it. People seem to like it. And I guess I'll write another one if they let me.
May I ask you, Megan, before you
Yes.
go, if you've noticed any particular speech pattern in this group of 82-year-olds that you're
82, don't say you're that young. Come on.
From this group of spring chickens that I've been speaking to, no, actually, no. You guys are all very well spoken. No one is doing anything that seems like a tick that would be generational or otherwise. No, not at all, actually. But I think I'm at the point now where I don't pay attention, not that I don't pay attention to stuff like that, but I kind of don't pay attention to stuff like that. Because one of the other questions I've gotten is like, do I hear myself saying like more or at all ever since writing this book? And the answer, and if I do, am I going to change anything about that? And the answer is always like, no, I'm good. I think I'm okay.
That's awesome.
How would you change it if you wanted? I mean, if one is saying like a lot, how does one change it? That behavior.
I mean, it's like I don't know. You can get an app. I'm sure there's a billion apps that'll probably send you a notification. I have no idea. You get a rubber band and snap it on your wrist if you want to, but also like don't. It's fine. You're probably okay. Everybody needs to worry. Everybody needs to understand that the amount of worry that you're doing about yourself is so much bigger than the amount of worry anybody else is doing about what you're saying, how you are, whatever else. Everybody is almost always thinking about themselves. I think that's true, right? I don't know much, but that seems correct to me.
One thing that is I know seems to be changing is referring to a group of men and women as guys.
Yes, that
And
is changing.
that seems to be taken off. I've always tried to use folks, you folks
Folks is
instead of
good. Yeah, yeah. That is, those things are certainly changing. Sort of the language around gender is
right,
obviously is changing basically as we're sitting here talking. It's a constantly evolving thing. And that to me seems to be something that has been difficult for some people to sort of adapt to.
right.
Um, and that's their journey.
Yeah,
And I wish them all the best in figuring that out. But yeah, I think folks is like it's a pretty, I mean, it's an easy switch,
right. The
you
other
know?
thing I've noticed, my 12-year-old grandson who has spent his whole life in California is now saying y'all.
Oh,
Y'all?
That is
And this weekend, my wife and I are up in Seattle
interesting.
visiting our son and daughter-in-law, and she's,
Mm.
born and raised in the state of Washington, and she's saying y'all.
hmm.
So
That
I don't know, maybe
is
Hampy, you hear that in
weird.
Yeah,
Tennessee
yeah,
or
yes.
in South
I live
Carolina,
in I live in
you
South Carolina. I grew up in
right.
Massachusetts.
But
Mm.
Then
it's
there's all y'all. You ever heard that one?
yeah,
Right.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
All y'all.
that's making sure everybody gotten every single person, like
Listen,
So
not just
it's
y'all, but like
spreading. I don't know.
I mean, my other answer for like why does a regionalism or whatever else spread is social media.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Like it's a pat answer, but I do think it's also
Hmm.
like
Good point.
kind of the answer. Like why does someone in Washington State who was born and raised in Washington State say y'all? Probably because they know somebody or like it just seems more friendly than saying you guys or whatever else, however else you would address a group of people. Um, but I don't say it because I think it sounds weird coming out of my mouth, and I feel good about that
If
decision.
at the end of this call, if Kent says, y'all come back and see us again real soon, that's going to be a little disturbing.
Uh, well, Megan, listen, thank you for coming on. It's about 12:27,
yeah.
57 now. You're okay.
Yes, I am going to. Yes, I'm going to drink some water and do the other thing. Thank you guys for having me.
Okay, thank you for
you.
coming on.
This was so lovely. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
So.
Bye.
That was Megan Reynolds. Her new book is titled Like, A History of the World's Most Hated and Misunderstood Word. And that's it for this edition of the Last Negroes at Harvard podcast. I'm Kent Garrett. I will talk to you again next week.